Good evening and welcome to the October 21st meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll take motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Rosser, will you please read the purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. I will go ahead and read our statement regarding public comments, which follow each of our discussion items, as well as our public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And the first item under our discussion items is policies for discussion.
So these are the policies that we reviewed in the last policy committee meeting to bring up for discussion. And again, it's a set of policies that are required based on IASB, and all of them follow the IASB model.
Any questions for our policy committee members?
I have a question. In the 502.7 smoking, drinking, and drugs, I didn't see anything in there about vaping, and that's been known to be problematic as well, so I was wondering if we wanted to include any language about it.
Any thoughts, Superintendent Reisner? Or it certainly, vaping has found its way to the news quite a bit lately.
Yeah, yes, and I thought that it said in here, I'm looking real quick.
It said tobacco products, but I don't know if that really counts as tobacco.
We can, you know what, we can add that, specific language about that. And it will be added in the rules portion. So we kind of spell out within the rules portion exactly what those items are. But I think it wouldn't hurt to add it in here as well. So I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
I would support that recommendation. Maybe use a generic term, something like nicotine products. Because
good.
as a parent of a high school student, whether we realize it or not, they're there.
That would include
they're
nicotine
there.
gum, too.
Pardon me?
That would include nicotine gum, too. Then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way we're covering all those bases. But like I said, as a high school parent, I've been told the bathrooms do, on occasion, have students in the stalls using those products.
And I would guess the IASB policy, I don't know when they make these sample policies, but if it has kept up with recent trends that certainly have been present in the media. So thanks for the suggestion,
Thank
Gina.
you.
Any other questions or comments on these policies?
On the weapons one, 502.6, let's see, let me find it. It says that weapon is allowed, let's see, where is it? Especially authorized by the board are exempt from this policy. And I'm not sure, so I know police officers, but who else are we authorizing? Is there, I think it's the last paragraph on the...
Where it says, under the control of law enforcement officials or other individuals. Who would be other individuals?
Yes.
There would be some support staff that I know of that would need to use like knives or things like that for their jobs, whether it's to open boxes, box cutters, that kind of thing. That's how I take it.
Yeah. I also think that in our, and I'm trying to think back, in our plan, in our emergency response plan, there could be other entities that come in And I'm real quick trying to rack my brain on what that emergency response plan, maybe I'll look over at Eric. Our emergency response plan, did it have other agencies listed?
I am looking to see how specific.
Like emergency response agencies that wouldn't be considered law enforcement?
Okay.
I don't know, that's not fine.
We can check on that and come back with that.
Since we're coming back, good, thank you.
But usually that does cover those emergency response groups that would come in. But let me double check and we'll come back with that.
Thank you. The other one that I had a question on is 503.2 expulsion, and it says there what the student receives. Is there any, this is a question for the policy committee, did you ever, when you go through the policies, because I don't know exactly how this works, but is there anything that we as a board need to receive? There isn't anything on the policy that what the board should receive when we're presented with a case of expulsion. And I wonder if it's something should be added to that.
That will be in the administrative rules portion.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Great question. Yes. That goes in the administrative rules.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on these policies? Great questions and thoughts for administrative team.
Okay, one more.
Yep.
Okay. 503.4, the good conduct rule. I just was wondering, how do we feel about that one? It doesn't say anything in specific, and I don't want it to be too broadened that, I don't know, it might be a tad vague.
So these policies, this batch are required, and so we didn't write them.
Right.
And we can't not have them.
Right.
And, we agree. I rail in the meetings about how poorly worded they are, but I think what we always fall back on is that the policies in many ways are supposed to be less firm, less vague, I guess. Broad is probably the better word. And that in the administrative rules is where we get down to the specifics. So just as a district, so as you can see, we didn't really add anything
Right.
because other than adding this little piece about the law, because this is just what's required. And then we would, within our administrative rules, kind of make it much more meaningful, so.
Exactly. And then also the student handbooks then drill down to the building levels.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, or
that.
another way to look at this is having this policy be broad at this level is good, because as you go down to not only building but also into the actual activities, so there might be good conduct that's specific to athletics or other extracurricular activities that might be just a little bit different, and specify some specific conduct rules. So us being broad in this sense, allows them to do other things, which they do. There's much more detail in those good conduct forms that parents fill out every year.
Superintendent Reisner, as you look at these, and I appreciate that the policy committee is working with, because the discussion we had this summer was about the policies that we were behind on and what IASB provides us for information and sample policies to look at. When you look at these, so since these are new policies to us, then you will be developing the administrative rules. How big of an undertaking is that going to be for just this, not all of the policies, but just for this segment?
I think some of it has already been done, even in the absence of a district policy. Some of that work has already been done. We are doing a great deal of work through our PBIS and defining major offenses, minor offenses, and so that will all play into this as well. So it's timely because we are going through that work right now. But I would say it's not like we haven't had a policy on weapons. In the absence of a policy, we have had policies through student handbooks and those things. So We're not starting from scratch.
Sure, it's cleaning that up and getting it organized
Yep.
and following through with this, great.
I did notice there is one language change that we had suggested in policy committee that we could bring up to people now. In 503.4, we had suggested maybe the first sentence should be participation in school activities is not a right, instead of saying it is a privilege.
Did that not get on there?
It doesn't look like it got on there, but I'd throw it out to people. Does that seem like a reasonable change to make?
Oh, yep, it didn't get on there. You're right. Yep, we can make that change.
Then I had one question on 601.1, based on a question I had gotten. It says the last paragraph says the board may amend the official school calendar when it's in the best interest of the district. How does this apply to for lack of a better word, the official calendar as it relates to staff? And what days they report to work, things like that?
They're kind of two separate things. You approve the calendar that is the student academic calendar. We, from a district standpoint, when we issue contracts, that spells out the number of days that a teacher works and what that calendar for the teacher looks like. So you're really establishing that calendar for start of school and end of school, a number of days and this and that. Then when we do contracts and employee handbooks and those items, that's where the employee portion comes in. And you've already approved the certificated handbook and you approve the contracts every year.
So if we, based on this last paragraph, adjusted the school calendar after it's been adopted, would we then have to update the teachers' contracts, right? I mean, what's that process look like? It's more a process question. It was something I was thinking about here because, yeah, it does seem like those two are disjoint, but how are we able to adjust the school calendar?
So, for
without
example,
that?
if there are snow days, and we brought, I think this happened last year, maybe,
Yeah.
just a few snow days, but we brought that and you adjusted the calendar. Teachers still have to fulfill the number of days that they are required to work, and those days come at the end because that's, they don't show up to work on a snow day. We have to have them when we have kids, so they still have that contract number of days to fulfill.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I just have one comment on the August 23rd date. It's unfortunate that the state made us do this. I still argue we have evidence that supports that we should be able to start whenever we want because it's the best interest of our students. So I just encourage the administration to be aware if there's any flexibility ever down the road in adjusting that, because when we had end of semester end prior to a holiday break, I think it was supported by students and parents. So anything we could do to, I guess, keep that open and look for opportunities, I'd be fully supportive of getting rid of that 23rd mandate.
And I continue to advocate for that with the legislators, and that continues to be a topic that I bring up through my SAI legislative committee that I'm on. So
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, I was going to recommend that with this, since this is our policy, and ISB for long, in its beliefs, not only fought against that change, but also continues to ask the legislature to give school districts the right to decide what is best for our local school district to start. So my recommendation, when we bring this back in 2 weeks, would be to change that first sentence in the second paragraph. So it would say academic school year for students shall begin no sooner than required by our state statute, instead of specifically referring to the date. That way, hopefully, we can convince our legislators in the future to go back to give us that flexibility and not have a policy that specifies a specific date as the current statute does.
I'm supportive of that as well.
okay, we can make that change.
My only concern with that, I'm thinking through this because I so appreciate the intent of this. My only concern with that is for our families wanting to make sure they have a clear idea. I'm just throwing this out there. For our families wanting to make sure they have a clear idea of what our school calendar might look like. Granted, the wisest thing would be to pull up the school calendar, right? I don't know, I just want to be able to make sure that we're providing the best information to our families. Maybe it's not in policy and it continues to be in the school calendar, which obviously it would be.
Yeah, I don't think any of our parents go to the policy area to find out when school starts. So I
I think some
understand your
do, but they
concern.
might not on this one.
Yeah, they'll go to the calendar. But yeah, again, policies, we should write them so that they don't need to be changed, just
Sure.
at the whim of the legislature. So, and I think this sends a message that, we're going to continue to advocate with the legislature and the governor's office to give back the local control power to local school district boards to determine what is best for our schools and our students and our families.
To Elisa's point, I'm curious though, do we want to add any language that would provide clarity of, say, we usually approve for 2 years out, and so it gives some certainty to parents saying, okay, please, for the next two years, we're going to start on this date. I like having flexibility, but to your point, it could provide that clarity, at least for parents, that they'll know at least for 2 years it'll be at a certain time, or 3 years, whatever you want to suggest. I agree with Lewis. I like the idea of leaving it vague, but providing some clarity of the board won't just, a month out, say we're going to start 2 weeks early.
I kind of see this like the other policies where we don't want to be too specific in this, right? And then we define the rules elsewhere. We don't want to box ourselves into a corner by being too specific, right? Because if we do want to change it at some point in the future and we haven't reviewed this policy, then I could see where that could kind of get in our way.
So maybe in your administrative rules, you can say August
Absolutely.
23rd.
That's right.
That we can be, because I really do, I appreciate that both of you
agree.
have brought this up and the intent behind it, so.
But, I mean, relative to that too, I think in the administrative rules where we say adopt by the board annually, the administrative rules probably should specify, we will try to have this done by, say, I don't know, March or whatever works best for the district, so that we do have a long lead time for the community.
Yeah, my goal is to bring it by December,
Okay, so whatever
so
you want.
that by the first of the
administrative
year,
rules.
families know. So bring it in December for approval and then for first reading, and yeah. We've been working on it.
Any other questions or comments from the board on the policies for discussion? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public on the policies that are listed here? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the next item, which is board committee updates.
I'd like to provide the board with an update from the Equity Committee. Dr. Jones and I had a great meeting. We met to figure out what the rhythm for the Equity Committee should be, and we talked about it and we decided that a monthly meeting would be beneficial, especially when the office is still starting, and how Dr. Jones said it so well. He said he's building the foundation, and so this would help him and help us to know where he's at and give us updates. We have set up a date for the next Equity Committee meeting, and that's November 8th at 1 o'clock. We did not set any further meetings because we feel we just wanted to, due to the upcoming election, we didn't want to set a whole calendar and then people couldn't make it. So that's where we are.
Do you anticipate after the election setting like a calendar out for an extended period of time?
We talked about that, and we thought that similar to what the TLC committee had, we had an ongoing agenda and ongoing kind of the same day, same time sort of rhythm. That's what we, Dr. Jones and I thought that it would be beneficial, so then we know this day we'll always have an Equity Committee meeting.
That would be great, because then I can get it on my calendar and it gets filled up quick. Thank you.
Yes.
One update for facilities, it was referenced in the notes, but regarding the additional bus storage. So for some context, as when we originally constructed that property for maintenance and bus storage, we had enough space to deal with our current busing needs. However, as enrollment's grown, we're starting to run out of space. So Jerry is very prudently trying to figure out options on what to do about that. So very preliminary discussions on how the district going forward should deal with that reality. But there is some property adjacent to our site that is available for sale. So just further discussions and working through options will be forthcoming.
Then another thing from facilities that doesn't normally come to the board level, but just as a note, the equipment purchase cycle, I'm not sure how many people on the board know, but Jerry's got an equipment purchase cycle for things like vehicles, where they cycle at 7 to 9 year time frame. There was a brief discussion of that, but effectively the committee agreed with the way Jerry has been doing this and finds that there's no need that we see to try to change that dramatically.
Any other things? I think policy, we already covered some of your discussion on our last item. No other updates? Any comments from the public on our board committee updates? Seeing none, we will move to the public forum, and nobody has signed up, so we will go to consent items. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of consent.
Second?
Moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Beerbaum.
Gifts to the district. I'm hoping I'm saying this right. Boehringer, Ingelheim Animal Health, Joanne Barter, McFarland Clinic, Atlantic Bottling Company, Coca-Cola, NAI Electrical Contractors, Green Hills Residents Association, and Elizabeth Ingelken.
All those in favor of approving the consent items indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. First action item, school-based enterprise and the creation of an enterprise fund.
I move the board approve the creation of a Student Enterprise Fund 68 for the enterprises associated with entrepreneurial coursework at Ames High School.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by, was that Colton? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. 2019-2020 retirement incentive for employees.
I move the board approve the 1920 retirement incentive for employees as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. Discussion?
I have a question for Chris. Is there a reason why we have June 30th for our for the retirement effective date by the time the teachers turn 55?
That's the state and statute, or the date and statute.
Okay, so that
They have to retire by June 30th, so we just follow the statute for the management fund. The management fund is the levy, the property tax levy that pays for this, and that's within there that we have to have their retirement by June 30th.
So that's something that we could not change.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It's been moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board. I had an opportunity to go to the Ames High Future Ready event, and if you notice, a lot of the gifts tonight were for that, and I just want to thank Vicki Hales. I know Jeff was a part of it. I know Brian Carrico was a part of it, but everybody who was a part of providing our students an opportunity to be career-ready, college-ready, community-ready, all those things, but appreciate all of the efforts that went into it, and really all of the community volunteers that came and did presentations for all of our students. It was, I enjoyed hearing some of the stories from the students and their experiences, so thank you to all of the staff, your leadership on that. The other thing that I want to say, and I'm going to get the group wrong, I think it is called the Green Group, but if anyone has ever been to an Ames High football game, at the end of the game, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these students come and they start picking up all of the garbage. And I got the opportunity to meet Jeremy, who established this group, but they just do it to help out. And Judge told me that they save our custodial staff 4 hours of work. They're able to do it in about an hour. And Judge reported to me, this is what I love about education, is to be here and see this in action. So I just want to give a shout out to our students, because it really is awesome to watch them put their gloves on and off they go picking up all the garbage in the stands for the football game. So
I'd like to add one other point, not only regarding the football game, but a number of athletic events and other events, music events that I've attended this past year and in previous years. But in particular, one of the football games this year, my wife and I were sitting next to a couple who, former parents, their kids are grown and gone, they're empty nesters, but they still come out and support Ames High. It's just something they do, on a Friday night when there's a lot of other options to be had. But it really shows the support that our community continues to have even after their kids graduate. They make that a date night, come out to the football game. Even when some of the scorers might not be the best, but they're still there cheering for Ames High. So really, a lot of the credit goes to our students, not obviously the athletes, the band members, and all the other, and it's not just the football games. You see these parents coming to swim meets or basketball games or cross country meets even. Which aren't the most interesting thing to watch, well after their children are gone. And some of them naturally are even grandparents who don't have grandchildren involved, but they still come out and support Ames High. So it was real warming, a great feeling to see that, and it's a lot of credit goes to our staff, our coaches, and everybody that puts these events on to make those welcoming still for those that just aren't the ones involved. Yeah, it's a neat thing.
that's cool. Items from the superintendent.
Just a few. Equity audit. I wanted to kind of follow up. We had an equity audit, and I know I've told the board this before, but just to refresh your memory, we did a deep dive based on the report that the equity committee had worked on last year, and they had, some of the recommendations within that were important for us to continue to follow up on. And so as a part of that, we said we were going to do a deeper dive with some more intensive equity audits. And so we conducted, actually Katie and Daniel conducted equity audits for our middle school and our high school. And our plan is to share that out with the board. We are looking for a date. We had scheduled it for November 25th, but that is the week of Thanksgiving, and I know that there are a few people who are not able to be here, so I'm going to reschedule that. It's looking like that first week of December. And then that will be for us as a board to do a deep dive into the middle and high school equity audit, and we will include our executive directors, our directors, and our middle and high school principals at that. So we're excited about that and excited to share it with the board, as well as some of our plans moving forward as part of that audit. I'm so sorry, critical consciousness training we had today, our next round with Katie and Daniel. And just as a reminder, we have about 72, help me out on the number, Anthony, 72-ish that come in the afternoon. In the afternoon. And so we have a new team that comes, 68 staff members that come in the morning, and that is for kind of that year one training. And we've included coaches, athletic director, just a broad, secretaries, yes, thank you, secretaries. Anybody else, Anthony, you want to highlight on that group? Okay. And so this is a great group that is now entering into that first year. In addition to that, we are in year 3 with that afternoon group, and we're working on in some breakout groups to really attack some critical components and try to dig deeper and develop plans within those areas. It's been great. I see growth in our staff. We have a lot more work to be done. And so we continue on this path. That being said, I wanted to highlight Dr. Mencken and Dr. Jones presented at IASB. And Katie told a story today that I think is pretty phenomenal. First, she shared with all of us, all 72 of us, that it was a very white room, and that really the information that was given to this room was like beyond what her expectations could have ever been. And she said after it was over, the vice president of IASB came to Katie in tears and said, "We have so much to learn and so much work to do," and was just really appreciative and mentioned how you guys are digging into some tough concepts in your district, and we applaud you. And so in addition to that, Daniel shared with me today that he called it, how did he say it, that Dr. Jones was dropping knowledge on, is that how he said it? Dropping knowledge on the students at Iowa State this week, and he had a former student text him and say how phenomenal the information was that Dr. Jones shared, and kind of hinted at wanting to come to work for us. I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but I'm reading that into what he said. So I really applaud, one, the Equity Committee for the work that they did in bringing information and recommendations forward to the district. And then two, I applaud our staff and our administration for the willingness to embrace in this difficult but necessary work, and to be open to having those deep dive equity audits, and now being open to share and look through that data with their staff. And then here as a board, we'll do the follow-up on that. And then finally, I'm excited this week. We plan to do Listen and Learn here at the district office. We'll have the first session will be from noon to 1, in hopes that if people have afternoon or evening commitments, they might be able to get away for lunch. And then we'll do the second session from 5:30, double checking that, 5:30 to 6:30. Both of those will be recorded, and we'll also record the questions so that people who aren't able to be here can still hear the questions and the answers. We plan to do kind of a quick overview at the very beginning of our purpose priorities and some of our critical work that we're doing this year. I'll have some of the directors there to share out some of that work, and then follow that up with some question and answer time from the public. And we're working on a great way to do that, so that if we're not able to get all of the questions answered, we'll still get the questions and be able to then publish those questions and answers out to the public. That's what I have.
Great. Thank you for the report. Board planning calendar. And if JD, if you will, please open it. I do want everyone to take a quick minute and appreciate how much easier this is to read. So thank you, JD, for the work that the time that you've put into this. So any things to highlight? I think if you look under October, my guess is the certified enrollment count, while that has been taken, we can expect to see that either at the 4th or the 18th. And then a couple of the other things that we maybe haven't had the opportunity to, we'll see in potentially the next month. Any questions on the calendar or things that you want to highlight?
I don't think so. I think I've kept up with the board work sessions
Okay.
that we have up and coming.
Okay. It looks like.
Color looks great.
The what?
The color makes a
Color
huge
does,
difference.
doesn't it?
Yep,
I know.
I
yep.
like it.
Very helpful. So
It's easier to read.
Yep, continue to guide us in our work, so we appreciate that. I will go ahead, just for the public, we have a board work session that we will begin in about 5 minutes, but we will adjourn this meeting and then open back up in our work session. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, passes 7-0. Thank you very much.